I'm going to talk about coding like a chef. Alright, yeah, thanks. My name is Baugues. I'm with a company called Table SI. We're about a 25-person Rails shop over in the West Loop. And today I just wanted to talk about how I've come back just recently to programming, now as a full-time developer. About 4 months ago I started. And how I've been taking lessons from the kitchen and applying to my coding practice. And in particular, I want to talk about this one idea. This is my best friend, Renee Delio. Renee and I met about 7 years ago, and we both moved to Chicago fairly randomly. We ended up in an apartment building that was friendly to people who had questionable credit history. And he moved here because he's a chef, and he had heard about this restaurant, Alinea, that was opening up. And so he sent the chef his resume time after time, and eventually after about a year, he got in. Today, Alinea is the 7th best restaurant in the world, and Renee's been with the company now for 6 years. They opened up a new restaurant called Next last year, and he's currently the sous chef and second in command there. While I lived with Renee for 4 years, he taught me how to cook. So I like to say I'm not actually a professional chef, but I am professionally trained. And when I came back to programming, I started trying to figure out how do I get really good at programming? What does it mean to be a professional developer? And I looked to Renee because he's one of the few people I know that's truly world-class at what he does. And this connection might not really be obvious between the kitchen and coding, but we talk a lot about programmers being craftsmen. And I'd argue that chefs are great craftsmen. And we probably have more in common with them than we do with other people who work in offices, like say an accountant, because at the end of the day, we're creators. And we build products for a finicky customer base that has no idea how it's actually made. And we talk about mentorship and apprenticeship, etc. So I want to talk about this idea of working clean. It's been the most important thing I've adopted from the kitchen. Thomas Keller is one of the best chefs in the world, says, working clean is a skill to develop. We call it mise en place, French literally for put in place. When I peel an onion, I get rid of all the onion skins before slicing it. When you finish a pot, wash it. Being organized is the first and most important part of cooking. In order to be organized and do what you need to do, first you need to know what is it I'm trying to do. Before Renee leaves the kitchen every night, he makes a prep list. So that you can come in the next day and just start right on it and just start crossing things off the list without dilly-dallying around. I've tried every sort of way of getting organized, and just actually writing out a list is the best way I can do it. Now, if I'm not careful, by about the middle of the day, my desktop can look like this. And every file that I've touched throughout the day is still open. I got my file gutter open over here, even though I don't need it. I got this random doc going in the background. My emails here is just begging for attention. And what I've been trying to do is to take this idea of taking the onion skins off and throwing them away when you're done, cleaning up, resetting after each task. So when I'm on my game, this is what my desktop looks like. And I got my tests on my left, my code on my right. We're a consulting company, so we have to track our hours. I have my clock here, so they're always current. I keep my browser on my monitor window below, and I only open it if I need it. And when I'm done with each task, I just Control-W all the way down and reset and figure out what I need for the next one. The next thing I've been trying to do is just drill the basic techniques, get really good at the simple things. If you guys cook at home, throw away all the knives you have and go take $60, buy a knife like this, and you can do anything you want with it. You just need very simple tools. So when I first started learning to cook, I just didn't even worry about applying heat, and I just practiced chopping. And I didn't try to go faster, I tried to do it right. I just tried to get the technique down. And Renee said, if you get the technique right, over time you'll just get fast at it. One day you'll just realize, hey, I'm going really fast, I'm doing this really well. So I just used to come home and just chop potatoes for 2 hours. I buy a 5-pound bag for $3. I've been trying to do the same thing with the tools that we use. I would argue that our shell and our text editor are the closest things that we have in knives. They're very simple tools that we use for just about every task. And I believe it was Brian yesterday gave a great talk about Z shell, and it was just, why don't we know more of that stuff? So I've been trying to drill these things. And then once I get the simple techniques down, I get really good at them, you can start building complex things. This is a dish that Renee made for us for our wedding. And it looks very complicated and composed, but no individual component of this was actually difficult to make. It's just a combination of very simple techniques that any culinary student would learn in the first few weeks. So he just sliced potatoes thin, he roasted them, he made some green beans, he threw some pork in the oven, and then once he had perfectly executed on each one of these very simple ingredients, then he just layered them on top of each other. There's nothing inherently complicated about this dish, it's just the complexity comes by layering simple ingredients and simple techniques. I made this code intentionally as small as possible because I don't want you to actually worry about what the code says. This is active record code from the Rails base with all the comments stripped out. But you can see that each method is very, very simple. Even as a fairly new Ruby developer, you can come into this and understand what each thing's doing. Yet when we combine all these simple methods into an object, and when we combine those into a framework, we can do great things. I encourage you guys to check out this book called The Clean Coder. It talks a lot about this, and I'll just leave you with this quote. It says, "Professionals do not succumb to the temptation to create mess in order to move quickly. Professionals realize that quick and dirty is an oxymoron. Dirty always means slow." If you want to read more about this idea, you can check out codelikeachef.com, and you can find me at GreggyB at Twitter. Thank you.